turn around and put your hands behind your back.
Officer, you need to understand, you have no probable cause for this.
I don't need you lecturing me about the law, pal. You're under arrest for obstruction.
I'm trying to tell you
I don't
who
care
I
if
am.
you're the president. You're going in cuffs, now.
My name is Marcus Williams. I'm a federal judge. I teach constitutional law. This stop has no legal footing.
Yeah?
This is the moment that destroyed a career in less than 48 hours. September 14th, 2024, a routine traffic stop on Interstate 95 in Richmond, Virginia. A police officer, a broken taillight, and a decision that would expose every flaw in our justice system. What started as a minor traffic violation became a constitutional nightmare captured frame by frame on body camera footage. The officer had no idea who he was dealing with. He had no idea that the man he was about to handcuff and humiliate wasn't just any citizen. He was arresting a federal judge. Not just any federal judge, a constitutional law professor who had spent 22 years defending the very rights this officer was about to violate. By the time the precinct realized who was sitting in their holding cell, it was already too late. The lawsuit was coming. The termination was inevitable, and the entire nation was about to witness what happens when a badge meets the Bill of Rights. This is the story of Officer Marcus Dawson and the arrest that cost him everything. Before we continue, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments right now. Are you from the USA, UK, Canada, or somewhere else? Let me know in the comment. And if you think accountability matters, hit that like button. Thomas Jefferson Williams, age 54, a name that carries weight in every courthouse from Virginia to Washington, D.C. For 22 years, Judge Williams had served on the federal bench for the Eastern District of Virginia, but his career started long before the black robes and the gavel. He graduated top of his class from Howard University School of Law in 1994, then spent a decade as a civil rights attorney, defending citizens against police brutality and unconstitutional searches. In 2002, he was appointed to the federal bench by President George W. Bush, a nomination that received bipartisan support because of his reputation for fairness and deep constitutional knowledge. He wasn't just a judge, he was a scholar. Every semester, he taught constitutional law at the University of Virginia School of Law, specializing in the Fourth Amendment, the very amendment that protects citizens from illegal searches and seizures. His students called him the Constitution Whisperer. He could recite Supreme Court cases from memory. He had written 3 books on civil liberties. He had presided over hundreds of cases involving police misconduct. He knew the law better than anyone. Judge Williams was a family man, married to his wife Angela, for 28 years, 3 children, active in his church, a respected voice in the Richmond community. He had spent his entire life fighting for justice, believing that the system, when it worked correctly, could protect everyone equally. On September 14th, 2024, he was driving home from the courthouse after a long day of hearings. His taillight had cracked that morning in the parking garage, something he planned to fix that weekend. He was tired. He was looking forward to dinner with his wife. He had no idea that a broken taillight was about to test every principle he'd spent his life defending. Officer Marcus Dawson, age 38, 12 years with the Richmond Police Department, badge number 4427. To his colleagues, Dawson was known as aggressive, a cop who didn't take disrespect. As a guy who believed the badge gave him authority that couldn't be questioned, he had racked up 17 formal complaints during his career, most of them dismissed by internal affairs, excessive force, unlawful detention, aggressive behavior during routine stops. But Dawson had never been disciplined. He had friends in the department. He knew how to write reports that covered his tracks. And he had something that protected him time and time again: qualified immunity. Dawson grew up in rural Virginia, joined the police force straight out of community college, and quickly developed a reputation for being tough on crime. But those who knew him saw something else: an officer who escalated situations unnecessarily, who saw every interaction as a test of dominance, who believed that respect for the badge came before respect for the Constitution. Out on the afternoon of September 14th, Dawson was finishing his shift on Interstate 95. He had written 4 tickets that day. He was bored, frustrated, looking for one more stop before heading home. When he saw a black Lexus with a broken taillight merge onto the highway, he saw an opportunity, just another routine stop, just another chance to flex his authority. He had no idea he was about to arrest the one person who could dismantle every legal defense he had. I have a question for you. Do you think officers should face consequences for illegal stops, or should they get away with it? Comment below with your thoughts. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we bring you real stories of justice and accountability every single week. September 14th, 2024, 6:47 p.m., Interstate 95 southbound lanes. Just outside Richmond, Officer Dawson's dashboard camera captured the moment he activated his lights. The black Lexus signaled and pulled over immediately onto the shoulder. No erratic driving, no attempt to flee, just a calm, lawful response to a traffic stop. At 6:48 p.m., Dawson approached the driver's side window. His body camera was recording. Dawson: "License and registration." Judge Williams: "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I was pulled over?" Dawson: "Your taillight's out. License and registration now." The tone was already aggressive. No courtesy, no explanation beyond the minimum. Judge Williams remained calm. He reached slowly toward his glove compartment. Judge Williams: "I'm reaching for my registration. My license is in my wallet." Dawson: "Keep your hands where I can see them." Judge Williams: "Officer, I'm complying. I'm just telling you what I'm doing." He handed over his license and registration. Dawson looked at the documents. Thomas J. Williams, clean record, current registration. Dawson: "Step out of the vehicle." Judge Williams: "I'm sorry, why?" Dawson: "Because I said so. Step out." This is where the Fourth Amendment violation began. Under Terry v. Ohio, an officer can only order someone out of a vehicle during a traffic stop if there's reasonable suspicion of danger. A broken taillight doesn't meet that standard, but Dawson didn't care. Judge Williams stepped out, calm, controlled, but internally he was already cataloging the violations. Dawson: "You got anything illegal in the car? Weapons, drugs?" Judge Williams: "No, officer." And I don't consent to a search. Dawson: "I'm not asking for your consent." Dawson walked toward the vehicle and peered into the windows. Another violation. Without probable cause or consent, this was an illegal search under the Fourth Amendment. Judge Williams: "Officer, I need to inform you, I'm a federal judge, my identification is in my wallet. You're violating my Fourth Amendment rights, and this stop has escalated beyond lawful bounds." Dawson froze for a second. Then he turned around and his face hardened. Dawson: "Oh, so you're a lawyer now? You think you know the law better than me?" Judge Williams: "I'm not a lawyer. I'm a sitting federal judge for the Eastern District of Virginia, and I teach constitutional law." You need to end this stop and return my documents." Dawson: "Turn around." Judge Williams: "Excuse me?" Dawson: "Turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest." Judge Williams: "On what charge?" Dawson: "Obstruction of justice." This was the moment. The career-ending, lawsuit-generating constitutional catastrophe of a moment. Obstruction of justice requires interfering with a lawful police action. Judge Williams had done nothing but assert his rights. He hadn't resisted, hadn't fled, hadn't threatened. He had simply told the officer who he was. But Dawson's ego had been challenged, and in his mind that was enough. At 6:53 p.m., the body camera captured Judge Williams being handcuffed on the side of Interstate 95. Cars drove past, witnesses recorded on their phones. And a federal judge who had sentenced criminals, presided over trials, and defended the Constitution was placed in the back of a police cruiser. Judge Williams: "Officer Dawson, badge number 4427, you are violating Title 42, U.S. Code, Section 1983. You have arrested me without probable cause. You have conducted an illegal search, and you have violated my clearly established constitutional rights. I will be filing a federal lawsuit, and you will lose your qualified immunity." Dawson slammed the car door. He had no idea what he had just done. Pause for a second. If you believe body cameras save lives and expose the truth, smash that like button right now. Also, comment justice if you think this officer got what he deserved. I read every single comment, and I want to hear your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. 7:14 p.m., Richmond Police Department, Central Precinct. Officer Dawson walked Judge Williams into the booking area, still convinced he had made a righteous arrest. The body camera was still recording. Other officers glanced over, watching the new arrival. The desk sergeant, Officer Linda Ramirez, looked up from her computer. Ramirez: "What's the charge?" Dawson: "Obstruction of justice. Guy wouldn't shut up about his rights. Thinks he's a lawyer." Judge Williams stood calmly, hands still cuffed behind his back. Judge Williams: "Sergeant Ramirez, I need you to contact Chief Patterson immediately. I am Federal Judge Thomas Williams, Eastern District of Virginia. I was illegally arrested during a traffic stop. Officer Dawson violated my Fourth Amendment rights. I conducted an unlawful search and arrested me without probable cause. The room went silent. Sergeant Ramirez stared at Judge Williams, then at Dawson, then back at the judge. Ramirez, you're Judge Williams from the federal courthouse? Judge Williams, yes. My identification is in my wallet, which Officer Dawson confiscated. You can verify my identity through the courthouse or by calling Chief Patterson directly. I've worked with your department on multiple cases. The color drained from Dawson's face. Dawson, he didn't tell me. He was being difficult. Ramirez, you arrested a federal judge? Sergeant Ramirez immediately picked up the phone. Within 3 minutes, Lieutenant James Caldwell arrived in the booking area. Within 5 minutes, Chief of Police Robert Patterson was on the phone. Within 7 minutes, Judge Williams was uncuffed, his belongings returned, and escorted to a private office. Dawson stood frozen in the hallway, realizing his entire career had just imploded. Chief Patterson arrived at the precinct at 7:41 p.m. He met with Judge Williams privately for 30 minutes. The conversation was not recorded, but sources later confirmed that Patterson apologized profusely and promised a full investigation. Judge Williams was calm, professional, but he made one thing clear, Judge Williams. Chief Patterson, I respect your department. I've worked alongside your officers for years, but what happened tonight was not a mistake. It was a constitutional violation. Officer Dawson arrested me because I asserted my rights. That's not policing. That's tyranny. I said I will be pursuing this through every legal avenue available. Patterson knew what that meant. A federal lawsuit, a civil rights violation, national media attention, and the end of Marcus Dawson's career. At 8:02 p.m., Judge Williams walked out of the precinct. His wife picked him up. He went home, had dinner, and by 10 p.m., he was drafting a federal complaint. By midnight, the body camera footage had been uploaded to internal servers. By 6 a.m. the next morning, it was in the hands of the FBI's Civil Rights Division. Officer Marcus Dawson had arrested the one person who could teach a masterclass on why what he did was illegal. And now, the entire justice system was watching. September 15th, 2024, less than 12 hours after the arrest, the Richmond Police Department launched an immediate internal affairs investigation. But this wasn't a typical case. When a federal judge is illegally arrested, the scrutiny doesn't come from just one department. It comes from everywhere. The FBI's Civil Rights Division opened a parallel investigation under Title 18 U.S. Code Section 242, which makes it a federal crime for anyone acting under color of law to willfully deprive a person of constitutional rights. If Dawson had acted with deliberate intent to violate Judge Williams's rights, he could face federal criminal charges. The Virginia State Police also began reviewing the case to determine if state-level charges were warranted. But the most damning evidence came from the body camera footage itself. At 9 a.m., Internal Affairs investigator Captain Angela Morris sat down to review the entire encounter. She watched the stop, the unlawful order to exit the vehicle, at the illegal search, the moment Judge Williams identified himself, and the arrest that followed. She paused the footage at 6:53 p.m., the moment Dawson placed the handcuffs on Judge Williams. Captain Morris, in her report, Officer Dawson was clearly informed of Judge Williams' identity and constitutional objections. Despite this, he proceeded with an arrest lacking probable cause. The charge of obstruction of justice is unsupported by any evidence in the footage. This represents a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment and departmental policy. Internal Affairs interviewed Dawson on September 16th. The interview was tense. "Ya investigator, why did you arrest Judge Williams?" Dawson. "He was being uncooperative. He kept talking about his rights. I felt he was obstructing my investigation." Investigator. "What were you investigating? It was a broken taillight." Dawson. "He seemed suspicious." IA investigator. "Based on what? He complied with your orders. He informed you of his actions. He presented his documents. At what point did he obstruct you?" Dawson. "He told me I was violating his rights. That felt like a challenge to my authority." That statement sealed his fate. Asserting your constitutional rights is not obstruction. It's protected speech under the First Amendment. Any officer who arrests someone for invoking their rights is violating clearly established law, which means qualified immunity would not apply. the FBI interviewed witnesses who had been driving past the stop. 3 separate drivers had recorded portions of the encounter on their phones. The footage corroborated everything on the body camera. On September 18th, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia received a formal complaint from Judge Williams' legal team, which included 2 of the top civil rights attorneys in the country. The lawsuit named Officer Marcus Dawson, the Richmond Police Department, and the City of Richmond as defendants. It cited violations of the 4th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and Title 42, U.S. Code, Section 1983. The complaint also included something unusual, a detailed legal analysis written by Judge Williams himself, breaking down each constitutional violation with cited case law. It was a masterclass in civil rights litigation, written by the victim. On September 20th, the Richmond Police Department held a press conference. Chief Patterson announced that Officer Dawson had been placed on unpaid administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. But behind closed doors, the department's legal team knew the truth. This case was indefensible. The body camera footage was public record. The arrest was unconstitutional, and the man they had arrested could argue the case better than any lawyer they could hire. Settlement negotiations began immediately. October 3, 2024, less than 3 weeks after the arrest, the Richmond Police Department's Office of Professional Standards completed its investigation. The findings were unanimous. Officer Marcus Dawson had violated departmental policy, state law, and the U.S. Constitution. The report listed 8 separate violations: unlawful detention, ordering Judge Williams out of the vehicle without reasonable suspicion, illegal search, looking into the vehicle without consent or probable cause, false arrest, arresting without probable cause, abuse of authority, using arrest powers to punish protected speech, failure to de-escalate, ignoring opportunities to resolve the situation peacefully, insubordination, disregarding the subject's identification as a federal official, conduct unbecoming an officer, engaging in behavior that discredits the department, violation of constitutional rights, depriving a citizen of 4th Amendment protections. On October 5, 2024, Chief Patterson held a private meeting with Officer Dawson. The conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Dawson was given a choice: resign immediately or be terminated and lose all benefits. He resigned, but resignation didn't save him from the lawsuit. On October 12th, the FBI concluded its investigation and forwarded its findings to the U.S. Attorney's Office. While federal criminal charges were considered, prosecutors ultimately decided that the case was better suited for civil litigation, where Judge Williams could seek damages and force systemic reforms. The civil lawsuit moved forward. Dawson hired a defense attorney, but his legal strategy collapsed almost immediately. Qualified immunity, the doctrine that usually protects officers from lawsuits, requires that the officer's actions didn't violate clearly established constitutional rights. But Judge Williams had spent 22 years establishing those rights, and he had presided over dozens of cases involving unlawful arrests. He had written opinions clarifying when an arrest crosses the line from lawful to unconstitutional. In his lawsuit, Judge Williams cited his own judicial opinions as evidence that the law was clearly established. It was a legal checkmate. Dawson's attorney tried to argue that the arrest was a mistake in judgment, but the body camera footage destroyed that defense. Dawson had been explicitly told he was violating constitutional rights, and he arrested Judge Williams anyway. On November 18, 2024, the City of Richmond made a settlement offer: $4.2 million. Judge Williams rejected it. This wasn't about money, it was about accountability. On December 9, 2024, the case went to mediation. After 6 hours of negotiation, a settlement was reached. $6.8 million paid to Judge Williams. But the settlement included something more important than money: systemic reforms. As part of the settlement, the Richmond Police Department agreed to implement sweeping changes: mandatory constitutional law training for all officers with a special focus on the 4th Amendment, taught by local law professors and civil rights attorneys; body camera accountability. All footage from arrests would be reviewed by an independent civilian oversight board; prohibition on retaliatory arrests. Officers could no longer arrest individuals solely for asserting their constitutional rights. Early warning system. Officers with repeated complaints would be flagged and required to undergo retraining or face termination. Public transparency. All settlement agreements involving police misconduct would be made public. Judge Williams donated $5 million of the settlement to create the Williams Civil Rights Foundation, which provides free legal representation to victims of police misconduct. He kept $1.8 million to cover legal fees and personal damages. The aftermath for Judge Williams. In January 2025, Judge Williams returned to the bench. His first case after the settlement, a civil rights lawsuit against a police department in Norfolk, Virginia, involving an unlawful arrest. He ruled in favor of the plaintiff. In his ruling, he wrote, "The badge is not a license to violate the Constitution. It is a responsibility to uphold it. When officers forget this, the courts must remind them. And when the courts fail, the people must demand accountability." The ruling was cited in civil rights cases across the country. Judge Williams continued teaching constitutional law at the University of Virginia. He added a new section to his syllabus, "What Happens When the System Fails? A Case Study." He used his own arrest as the teaching example. His students called it the most powerful lesson they had ever received, the ripple effect. The case didn't just destroy one officer's career, it changed police practices across Virginia. Other departments began reviewing their policies on traffic stops. Training academies added modules on constitutional rights. And officers across the state were reminded of a simple truth. The law applies to everyone, even them. Officer Marcus Dawson, meanwhile, became unemployable in law enforcement. No department would hire him, his reputation was destroyed, his pension was gone, and his name became a cautionary tale in police academies nationwide. He tried to appeal the settlement. The appeal was denied. He tried to sue Judge Williams for defamation. The case was dismissed with prejudice. By 2025, Dawson had moved out of state, working a security job at a shopping mall in Tennessee. His career in law enforcement was over. Justice had been served. If this story proves that accountability matters, do 3 things right now. 1. Smash that like button. 2. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of justice. 3. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. And comment below, do you think body cameras should be mandatory for all officers? Let's discuss. This story isn't just about one bad cop and one wronged judge. And it's about a system that too often protects the badge over the Constitution. A system where qualified immunity shields officers from accountability. A system where citizens are arrested not for breaking the law, but for knowing the law. Officer Marcus Dawson made a choice that day. He chose ego over integrity, authority over accountability, and he paid the price. But here's the question we should all be asking. How many times does this happen to people who aren't federal judges? How many people are arrested illegally but don't have the knowledge, the resources, or the platform to fight back? Body cameras are changing the game. They're forcing transparency. They're exposing misconduct. And they're proving that accountability isn't optional, it's essential. Judge Williams used his experience to create systemic change. He could have taken the money and walked away. Instead, he fought for reforms that will protect thousands of people he'll never meet. That's what justice looks like. Not revenge, not anger, but change. The Constitution isn't just a piece of paper, it's a promise that every person, regardless of race, status, or position, has rights that cannot be violated. And when those rights are violated, there must be consequences. Officer Dawson learned that the hard way. But the lesson isn't just for him, it's for every officer who thinks the badge puts them above the law. It's for every department that covers up misconduct. And it's for every citizen who believes accountability is impossible. It's not. This case proved it. And the next time an officer thinks about making an illegal arrest, maybe, just maybe, they'll remember the name Thomas Williams. And they'll remember what happened when a cop tried to arrest the Constitution itself. This is Justice Unfiltered, reminding you to stay informed, stay aware, and always demand accountability. Until next time, know your rights, use your voice, and never stop fighting for justice.